This is a presentation of OneLogin Training.
Welcome to Implementing SmartFactor Authentication, Part 4. Our last topic is Credential Protection. Basically, preventing users from using passwords that will make them more vulnerable to password-related attacks. Two options that we have that help prevent users from using bad passwords. Dynamic Password Blacklist, which prevents them from using passwords that have particular words or phrases, and Compromised Credential Check, which prevents them from using credentials, either username and password combinations or just passwords that have been captured by bad actors that are out there. Dynamic Password Blacklist is configured on the Password tab of a user security policy. The setting is actually called Password Restrictions. The idea is you can type in a user attribute and will recognize and enter it into the field. If a user tries to create a password that contains that value, like company name, their password will be rejected and they will have to go for a new one. So let's check out how to configure and what it might look like to an end user when Dynamic Password Blacklist is enabled. All right, so Dynamic Password Blacklist can basically look at any of these fields within a user record, their username, last name, email address, company, whatever I decide, any of these fields here, and prevent a user from including them in their password when they have to reset or choose to reset their password. So how do we set it up? Well, we're going to go over to our policies over here. I am going to go create a new policy for this guy here, and we're just going to call it Credential Check for now because we're going to demo both of the credential protection options here. And go to the Password tab. And this is where we can start specifying like the fields that we don't want them to include. Okay, lots of options that we have. I'll just do a few of them right now. I'm going to say first name, last name, or company. Maybe put an email address in there. That would be really annoying of them to include that. Or notice I have email domain part. That's what comes after the @ symbol. In this case, demo.com for Mr. Domain at demo.com. And I'm going to click Save. All right, so once again, we're going to manually assign this to our users just for test demo type purposes. And we will continue. Oops, not that user. We want to go torture domain, and I go to the authentication tab and choose our new credential check policy there. So save the user. Now let's go log in as this guy, and we're going to choose to change his password. So again, it might be that his password's expiring. In this case, we're just going to go to his profile page, and he's decided he wants to update his password. So click Change Password. So current password, we'll type that in. And then we're going to type in the new password. So let's try it with his name. So we'll put Dom 1 2 3 4 5. Dom 1 2 3 4 5. All right, update password. Insecure elements, i.e. you put your first name into this thing. What if I try my last name? What if I try demo 1 2? All right, so we can see that I've included, in this case, company name here. Anywhere in the string, it rejects the password. So I need to come up with something brand new and brilliant. We'll do something like this. Update his password, and voila, we are in. Okay, that is Dynamic Password Blacklist at work. Compromised credential checking compares the password a user is trying to set their password to against a list of known breached passwords. If the Enforce Compromise Credential check is selected and both the user's username and password are on the list, their password will be rejected. This option will prevent users from using credentials they've used on other sites that have already been compromised. If Enforce Compromise Password check is selected and the password they have chosen is on the list, the password will be rejected, whether or not it was used with their username. This latter option would be the more secure option, but could also cause a bit of user frustration by rejecting a lot of their passwords. So just as we looked at dynamic password list, let's take a look at compromise credential check. Finally, let's take a look at those compromise credential checks. So we're going to go now modify the credential check policy we had created, the one where we tested out dynamic password blacklist functionality, and go to compromise credentials here. So usually we would recommend maybe just do the enforce compromise credentials, which is going to look again at a list of breached credentials. And if the user's username and password is in the list, prevent them from entering that password that matches the username they're using in OneLogin. Because this is a brand new user, or at least one that I did not create all that long ago, I'm really going to assume it's actually not on the compromise credentials check. So we're going to just go for compromise password check there, and we'll test this out by typing in like a very common password, like password 123, those kinds of passwords that people should never, ever, ever use. So we're going to enable compromise credential check, and it's basically going to check against all passwords that have been breached. And if we type in one of those, it's going to reject it. So I'm going to click save. This policy's already been applied to our friend Dom there. So we're going to go back over to Dom's session and actually try to change his password again. So we're going to type in the one that we created for him last time and type in a new one. So let's type that password 123. Very, very popular. Click update password. Again, not allowed. Way too common of a password. Let's type in one of my favorite old Microsoft ones, capital P at SSW0RD. Let's try that one. Ha! Surprise, surprise. That one's been compromised too. All right. And of course, nobody should ever do this. Oh yeah, you can't even do that nowadays, but let's see. Update password and again. No. All right. So this actually really covers, but unfortunately, again, it might be a little too much. So, you know, if I put in, for example, let's see if password I'm using, that one actually might be okay. Let's try it. Update password. That one was okay. So we know that that's never been compromised at this point. Now, of course, it will be. But that's a password that is a little safer for, again, my user to use because it's not on any of the breach lists that we are checking through. And that is compromise credential check at work. And this concludes implementing SmartFactor Authentication.
This is a presentation of OneLogin Training.